Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each episode, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business builder, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $10 million a year. All right, dear listeners, we are on episode 137 of the podcast. Today is February 29th, 2024. That makes it Leap Day, coming once every 4 years. Always a fun time. I feel bad for all the people whose birthdays occur on February 29th, because do you celebrate it on the 28th, or do you celebrate it on, the 1st of the following month, based upon all of this? It's kind of a crazy thing. But anyway, digging into this, for this episode, as we're coming into the end of the month, we'll be talking about some new topics and kind of transitioning into those new topics towards the end of the podcast. For right now, I want to take a look at the books that we're dealing with. We're still on 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class by Steve Siebold. And rather than just talk about it, I actually want to borrow a piece of information from one of the 177 secrets. And it talks about the 5 layers of thinking. I don't have the exact wording going on here, but there are 5 different ways to think about things and how you go about your job. The number 5 is playing not to lose. This is what a lot of companies that are doing manual work focus on. It's, I better perform or I'll be in trouble. Okay, that's the thinking and the playing not to lose. Number 4 is playing to cruise. As long as I continue to perform, I can cruise. That's the mindset of this particular one. And you'll find that mindset in a lot of companies that don't have a lot of ability to scale up. You can't grow within the company. You're pretty much locked in to an area. And so as long as you just cruise, you're good, right? Number 3 is playing to improve. Now, the mindset of this one is maybe I can accomplish more than I thought. Maybe I'm better than I think I am. Okay, so this is where we begin turning the thinking to become higher level thinking within the process. And essentially, it's belief-altering events occur that trigger a new thought process. The playing to improve is what a lot of really good people do. They're reaching to a higher level of what they're trying to accomplish, and they are looking to improve in that process. Whether they do or not is anybody's guess, but at least they're trying, right? The number 2 mindset is playing to compete. And it's the mindset is, I think I can be the best. It expands your belief system, but what it happens is it's still ego gratification. I went through a period of this when I was working in IT, because the level of people that I was working with were in the playing to cruise or playing not to lose category. And I wanted to be reaching higher than they were and doing more and doing better. So I was falling into this playing to compete mindset. And that playing to compete mindset actually held me back from actually getting anywhere. And the number 1 mindset that they talk about is playing to win. Now, in this case, the mindset is, I cannot fail. I can only learn and grow. The only person I'm competing with is myself. And that's a great kind of a quote for us to kind of take into our business that we deal with. We're not competing for our job. We're competing in our job. And by competing in our job, rather than competing for our job, we're now a business of one, if you will, a position of one. And we're not trying to become the thing that everybody else is, because we're only competing with ourselves. So that's the best mindset that you can have to be in a successful business, is compete with yourself. Am I better than I was yesterday? If the answer is yes, it's a good day. If the answer is no, you have to say, all right, what can I do to turn that around and make it so that I can compete with myself? So that's enough from the 177 Mental Toughness Secrets. You can see it's an excellent, excellent book. It's not just kind of tossing things at the wall. It's here's a tool that you can use, or here's a mindset that you can use. It's absolutely excellent. Next book is Selling You by Napoleon Hill. I haven't got deep into this book because I've been preparing for my workshop that comes tonight. I've kind of put things on the back burner, let things sit a little bit. Objections by Jeb Blunt, another one that I've had to kind of let sit for a little bit. I'm in the creative mode these days, so I'm really not hopping onto the phone and making a lot of phone calls. So the objection side of things, as much as I'd like to continue learning it and will continue learning it, is going to be held up a little bit because of this workshop. And I'll give you some more information on that later on. In the terms of quotes, I want to read something that came from, it's a book that Mike Walker put out. It's on customer service and how to improve it. And it's an unknown quote. I've seen it used before, but it is a very good quote for us to consider. People think it's sexier to go chase new customers. They don't get it. The magic is pouring on gas to ignite existing relationships. I'd rather have a massive bonfire by my most loyal adopters than constantly lighting little sparks here and there. That is absolutely true, because if you can continue doing the things for the customers you have, you keep them, you're going to be able to do nothing more than build on them. But if you let them go, whether it's because you didn't do it right, they weren't doing what you wanted, whatever the case may be, if you let them go, not only do you have to start finding somebody else, and it's actually a more expensive process, but you very well may lose out on something that you didn't see, you didn't know existed with that customer or client, that when you let them go, now you don't have it. Many times you can't get referrals from people you've let go of or that have left you. And we all have that scenario where somebody that we were working with did us wrong, did us bad, whatever. They might be right, they might be wrong. Regardless, we're left to go and flounder because they don't want to deal with us anymore. Or in many cases, we as customers and clients don't want to deal with them. I just recently had that happen where somebody did something that I didn't think was fair, and I called them on it, reported it. They did nothing. So I went over their head. And they didn't like that at all. So now they can't get a good review out of me, even if they wanted to. We all run into that. We all get kind of treated that way sometimes. And so that's a great quote to consider as we go through and do this episode. In our business strategy section, we're going to wrap up Agile. And I'm going to make this pretty simple. We'll be talking a few minutes about where we're headed. But in this wrap up, there are really two things to focus on with Agile as frameworks, as a strategy. Number one is the principles, and number two is the changes. So under principles, you're prioritizing feedback. You want to make sure you're building feedback loops so that as things can come back to you, you can integrate those. You want to work in manageable chunks. You don't want to try to take the whole project and put it into 2 weeks and never do anything else. Really, that's probably one of the worst ways you can actually work on a project, is to just forget all other projects. Number one, they're going to get left behind. And number two, this one is not going to be, you're not going to get the benefit of being able to see it and think about it and reflect on it as you go. And finally, the principles of Agile are collaborative culture, not hierarchical. This is important, especially like I work with professional services of all kinds, taxes, finance, legal, a little bit of medical, all of these, and of course consultants themselves. But all of these have to work as a group, and they tend to be hierarchical, attorneys or whoever is at the top, and then the grunt work gets handed down to the people below them. And so all they're doing is grunt work, and they're getting no benefit from seeing the bigger picture. They're not getting the benefit of working at the bigger picture level. That hierarchical view of things, by getting rid of it and getting to an agile mindset that you are going to collaborate on projects, there could be a team leader, and it could be like the attorney or the finance person, but everybody's working together to see the problem from a whole, from over the top of it, not just their own little piece of it. They're looking at it as a whole. And many times people have had other experiences similar to this that they can add to the project that you're working on, the group. They can add to that and make it work better for everybody, because you're shortcutting the process of reaching into this project and finding all of the unknown things that are out there. The other part of Agile we discussed is changes. There are changes in mindset. Again, like a hierarchy versus a group, the mindset is very different. You're working together. You're not working for independence. Another thing that changes in an Agile environment is skill set. You cannot just be one thing and that's it. You have to learn to become more. And that's great, because people then learn how to grow to the next level in your business. If you work the right way in a teamwork fashion rather than a hierarchy, what happens is people get to see the higher levels. They learn from that. And by learning from that, they then are able to transfer those own skills to themselves, so that when you have a person who leaves for maybe professional reasons, they want to move up, this person has at least some of the skills that are necessary to work at that higher level. You can promote them into the new position, and they have more skills as a result of their experience as a whole. And finally, in changes is a flexible process. Usually in a lot of professional service businesses, processes are super inflexible. It's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about tonight in the workshop. In our case, law firms have a tendency to be extremely inflexible. All of the attorneys work the same way they were trained to work, and all the people that are paralegals and staff members work to the level that they were trained to work. And so what happens is you end up with this almost a kludge, things put together that don't quite fit. But if you build a flexible process instead, what happens is the pieces can morph. They can adjust a little bit, somewhat here, somewhat there, some crossover occasionally, right? Because one part might blend into the next part that blends into the next part. And that's usually what happens with a flexible process. Things blend from one to the next. They run much more smoothly. Whereas in a very rigid, very hierarchical manner, they have to be completed, abandoned, and then picked back up. And then completed and abandoned and picked back up. That is where a lot of professional service complaints come in, is that somebody says, you should have done a better job of knowing that that needed to go there. And the professionals are like, well, we know our job. And it's like, no, you didn't, because if you knew your job, you would have picked that back up. I wouldn't have had to be complaining about this. So principles and changes of Agile, we're working out of that. And now we're going to start moving into something that is very common in the military, but it's called first principles thinking and first principles strategies. And that's going to be for the month of March. But essentially, both Agile and first principles both share a common goal of fostering innovation and effectiveness, right? They both encourage looking beyond conventional methods to find better solutions, either by rethinking the problem from its most basic principle, which is where first principles starts, or by continually iterating and adapting, which is where Agile kicks in. In the problem-solving factor, They both provide frameworks for tackling complex challenges. And let's face it, most of the projects that you're going to be involved in any kind of a business that's service, they're probably not going to be simple. They're probably not going to be easy. They're going to need to have a deeper understanding of the problem itself and the flexibility in the approach and how you deal with it. And both of them are great at breaking down complexity. Whether iterative cycles or deconstruction into the basic elements, that's your first principles, both methods aim to simplify complexity, making it more manageable and understandable. When you kind of put that together, you can see the power of having a team that can be agile and can use first principles at different levels. And many times, you're going to see that the practice or the business is going to run much better, especially if it's a service business. Essentially, agile and first principles thinking approach problems from different angles. They complement each other in fostering innovation and effective problem solving. That's one of the reasons why we went from sequence chains to agile strategies and now into first principles thinking. We get an availability to be able to function across all three different elements. Many times, sequence chains are perfect. For simple things that have a limited number of variables in them, sequence chains are perfect. They're awesome. But when you start getting into complex variables, or you get into variables that change according to circumstances, then you have to either go with agile or you have to go with first principles thinking. So that's why I'm spending this first quarter really putting the mindset in play that you want to be able to do all of this kind of thinking when possible and flex between them according to the challenges that you face. We went through our books, we went through our quote, we went through our business strategies for Agile as a wrap-up heading into first principles thinking. One thing before we go is I do want to let you know that I am doing a workshop called Take the Leap. It is this evening at 6:30. I'm going to make the replay available. It's going to be focusing primarily on the legal professionals that are out there. And we're going to be looking at the same types of topics of how things work within a law practice level and try to put all of this together to actually run much more efficiently. Going to go ahead and close out the podcast today. This is Randy for the Budding Entrepreneur, wishing you the best in your health, your wealth, your business, your family, everything about you. Take care. We'll be back for March and have a great time this week. Bye now.